So when you see that in your students, what have you seen emotionally, in their relationships, in their career, in even in their finances? What have you seen has changed in your students? If you talk in the basic Maslow's hierarchy, of your physical needs, your relationship, your financial, what have you seen has changed for those students just in your basic Maslow hierarchy?
Well, I can give you examples. For example, Debbie is going through a trying time with her family, with COVID, and another family member having an operation in another family. So she came to class, something very interesting, and she didn't want to draw. She just wanted to play with color, which I thought was quite amazing, because emotionally she was spent and she just needed to come and play with color, which is fantastic. So she just wanted the other side of the brain to be stimulated, where she felt so relaxed, which I thought was really lovely. And then I think halfway through to the lesson, then she was now relaxed enough to go and draw. So she just wanted, right brain stimulation, child brain, be in the child brain, and then go to the adult brain after the child was sort of stimulated.
So she almost balanced out her overwhelm and then went back into structure.
Yeah, but luckily I know her, I understand her. So I was able to adjust and adapt to her emotional, psychological needs. Mm. And then for another example, a very lovely lady, very astute with computers, very academic. And she wanted to just be able to understand how to get all of her features accurate just with line work, with a thin paintbrush. And she was becoming too methodical and too logical. And I said, why don't you just work quickly? Because when you work quickly, automatically you're going to relax. And as soon as she started working quickly, she was more accurate with her measurements and her placements than if she was working slowly. So, it's almost like a contradiction in terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll give some examples. If we start like with the basic Maslow pyramid scheme. So your first one is about your basics met. So your shelter, all those areas. So if I give a few examples on what I've seen students when they've attended our classes, what has changed in that area for them. I'll give you some examples. So I've had students who have turned around their situation from either living with family members to actually going out there and supporting themselves. I've had a student who was afraid of leaving a marriage actually because they felt that they have to start from scratch by themselves, pick themselves up and make the decision to move out and go and set themselves up in their life. I had another student who was afraid to study and go through studying things and remember things, and they said that this helped them balance themselves. I had another student who was who had a brain tumor, and they had to get back to basics because they had lost everything in their perception, and then they just got to a place of just understanding, okay, I'm at this place now, what are my next steps? So it's just looking at how does a person's life change just at your basic foundation, your shelter, by learning skilled techniques, because obviously free painting and abstract painting has a role to play, which we're going to talk about later. But just in the basic, how have you noticed people have turned around in themselves? So their confidence levels, they've either done things that they never thought would ever be possible and they've actually done it. They've either set up a business. They've either, what have you noticed in the students you've worked with, just in how their lives have turned around in that first category?
Yeah, so there's a definite link, to their lives and what they're doing. So, for example, I was telling you about a student who was, quite pedantic and wanted everything perfect, and she was able to make a decision to immigrate. So she got the message, just relax, as much as you can. Yes, you've got very important things to do, logical things to go through. So for me, that was phenomenal. And then with Debbie, the same thing, her realizing that she's at a different stage of her life. She's now a pensioner, and they have to move from their massive house, and obviously,
it's not of the fear to take action, basically.
Yeah, moving to the next phase of their lives, where they'll have to think about frail care situations and things like that. So that's the phenomenal thing of how it's all linked. What you're doing will definitely help you in your decision making, no matter what stage you are or what challenges you face in life.
Well, I'm going to add to what I used to witness you doing when we were in Friedenberg. And I remember sitting at the back of the classroom. And I remember at that time, there was quite a depression around at that time. A lot of people were committing suicide because a lot of families had moved down to Bultadana still. And a lot of the women were almost forced to stay at home and be isolated, and the men would go to work and build relationships and do all these things. And there was quite a big depression going on in the town, wasn't there, at that time?
Yeah.
And what I remember, some of the wives who were even sneaking out without their husbands knowing and coming into the class. And when they were doing the class, I remember you having conversations with them, and they were going, this is just keeping my mind sane, just so I can know that I have a purpose on this planet, that I've got a life here, that I'm worth something, that I'm, I fit somewhere, I belong somewhere. And I remember witnessing this with a lot of your students when you were there, because obviously in some of the culture, it was that basically the women couldn't say certain things. They were quite restricted in what they could and couldn't do. Do you remember some of those students, or you don't have to say names, but do you remember some of those key students who really had turnarounds from that and could manage the household and make a change there?
Yeah, very much so. I think, they didn't have a compass, their own compass. So at least, they could create a personal identity by coming to art. And, I think there's so much psychology behind, well, anything you do, whether it's music, dancing, painting. It's for them to find their inner compass, to get some form of identity. And like you were saying, to feel as if, they're waking up for something, or they've been contributing, or they have some kind of identity, where they feel worthy.
And find themselves.
Yeah.
And I noticed when you worked with the children in the high school, because I obviously joined some of those classes, I noticed when I would obviously be with those children at school, and then obviously I'd come to, with you to be in the classroom. And I saw how a lot of them, the classes helped them through, I suppose, dealing with the conflicts and internal conflicts of being a teenager, feeling like they were losing themselves is what they would say to me. And then all of a sudden they had direction and they knew what they wanted to do later on in life, or they were stressed with exams, because obviously the school process there is that you're in school until you're 18, and then afterwards then you go to college. So
Yes.
you know, it was so important that they stayed in their art class, and a lot of them would fight with their parents because the parents would want them to leave art classes to focus on the studies, and they would fight with their parents saying, no, I really, if I've got to stay in this class to help me get through the exams and just give my brain that breathing space. And if anything, it helped them remember more information coming to that class for just an hour or so, or a couple of hours once a week. What did you notice that was quite a change when you worked with those teenagers?
Yeah, I think very, very well said. You know, the main of what I did notice is that where they could focus on something other than the chaos and the challenge that they were experiencing in their life, they can actually just redirect their focus onto something else. Which for me was, at that stage, I didn't realize how powerful that was. Just that simple act of sitting down, observing, focusing, not allowing the outside noise to come in. So